we have a topic called Parliamentary System. This is a very important topic in Indian polity. We would be expecting more questions in any competitive examination. So basically, we have a system of parliamentary democracy. We have opted this parliamentary system or parliamentary form of government, which has been adopted from the Britain, the England. So there in this class, we would be discussing parliamentary system, its merits, demerits, features, and also will compare parliamentary system with presidential form of government, which has been followed in United States of America, Sri Lanka, etc. So here in this class, we will be discussing what are the major features of parliamentary system. We had a long discussion in Constituent Assembly also, where there was the need to discuss about the parliamentary system, why we haven't opted for presidential form of government. As we all know, we have been ruled by British for 200 years long, but from 1909, that is the Act, Government of India Act 1909, we have gradually been experiencing this parliamentary form of government, and we have very much familiarity. You take 1909 India Act, 1919 Act, Government of India Act 1935. So all these major acts have gradually implemented most of the features of parliamentary form of government, which has been practiced in United Kingdom, that is England, British. So as we have a familiarity with the parliamentary form of government, and we could not generally experiment with the presidential form of government because we are a newborn country there. So we thought of sticking with parliamentary form of government. In this class, we would be discussing merits, demerits of parliamentary form of government, and we also compare this with the presidential form of government. So here in our constitution, Article 74 and Article 75, these are the major articles which establishes the parliamentary form of government at central level, and Article 163 and 164 gives the strength, or it establishes the parliamentary form of government at state level. So Article 74 is we have a council of ministers headed by Prime Minister to aid and advise the President in the running the government. So Article 74 talks about a council of ministers, that is the executive, headed by Prime Minister, and Prime Minister will be one among those ministers, but he would be the leader of the government. So parliamentary form of government by Article 74, it says that council of ministers headed by the Prime Minister will aid and advise the President. As we know, President is the nominal head of the nation, and Prime Minister is the head of the government. So Article 74 talks about council of ministers, and Article 75, which ensures collective responsibility in the parliament. So here when we discuss the features of parliamentary form of government, we would be discussing many such segments or components, like we have nominal head, executive, we have majority party rule. So these we'll discuss. So Article 74 and 75 forms the bedrock of parliamentary form of government. We have taken this parliamentary form of government from England. Even Canada follows the parliamentary form of government. Similarly, we have Article 163, where we generally compare that with union government. Even at state level also, we have a council of ministers headed by the chief minister, who will aid and advise the governor in the running of the state. So in modern democracies, we have two forms of governments. existing democracies, we have two form of government. Not only democracy, but any country, irrespective of the type of rule they have, we have two major form of democracies or systems. One is parliamentary and one is presidential form of government. So, modern democratic governments are of two types. One is parliamentary government and the other is presidential form of government. So, we will discuss what the parliamentary government is. So, parliamentary system here is generally we call as a Westminster model. Westminster is a place in England where the parliamentary form of government has been originated. So, we also call this as a Westministerial model. We also call this as a cabinet government, because cabinet is the real executive in parliamentary form of government. What is cabinet? See, we have a council of ministers, we have a group of ministers. Within that, we have very important portfolios, important ministries like defense, health ministry, external affairs ministry, finance ministry, home ministry, education ministry, agriculture ministry. So, all these ministries are very significant and have very important role to play in decision making. So, cabinet is a small group within the council of ministers. Council of ministers is a larger group. Within that, very important portfolios are headed by the cabinet ministers. And because cabinet is a highest decision making body, or it is a very important executive body and which is a part of parliamentary system. So, we also call parliamentary system as a cabinet government or cabinet system of government. We also call parliamentary system as prime ministerial government, because as we know, prime minister is head of the council of ministers, he is the head of the government, he or she is the head of the government, and prime minister is the real executive. When we compare president of United States of America, president of United States of America is both ceremonial and real executive, but in parliamentary system of government, president is a ceremonial head, that is a nominal head, and prime minister is the real head of the government. We also call prime minister as the real executive and president as the nominal executive, because he just has to play a ceremonial role. He acts on the aid and advice of the council of ministers headed by the prime minister. Because prime minister is so significant, he could make or unmake the government. That is the reason in parliamentary system we also call it as a prime ministerial form of government. As we do in presidential system, we call it as presidential form of government. So, in parliamentary system, executive system of the government, we call this as executive system of government, because here there is no distinction, there is no clear separation of powers between the legislature and executive. Executive is part of the legislature, because who are executive here? Only those members who got elected to the parliament can only become a minister. That is, a minister, that is who heads a ministry or department, is the same person who got elected to the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, that is to the parliament. Unlike in presidential form of government, or we'll take an example of United States of America, where the president can choose anyone to be part of their executive. So, here when we say the Congress of America, that is the Parliament of America, we call it as a Congress. There we also have two houses, that is upper house and lower house. Upper house we call it as a Senate, and lower house we call it as the House of the Representatives. Here in presidential form of government, the executive is not part of the Congress, that is the Parliament of United States of America. The elected president, the president who got elected, would choose anyone, any member from the outside to make part of the executive. In India, in parliamentary system of government, only member of parliament will be the part of executive. When we compare Indian parliamentary system with Britain parliamentary system, in British only the members of lower house, that is House of Commons, can be the executive or can be the part of the executive. Here in India, we can take anyone both from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha as well to be a part of executive. So, parliamentary system is called executive system of government. Here in parliamentary system, the executive is responsible in general to the parliament and in particular to the Lok Sabha. They are responsible, and that is the reason we call parliamentary form of government as a responsible government. In presidential system, the executive is not responsible to the parliament of USA, that is Congress. That is the reason why we call presidential form of government as non-responsible government. So, there are many merits and demerits when we look into the matter of parliamentary system of government and presidential form of government. So, here in presidential system of government, we have a clear division of powers, clear separation of powers, that is among the three organs, be it legislative, executive or judiciary. But in parliamentary form of government, which is practiced in India, we say legislature and executive are not completely independent, because the executive are only those members who are the members of parliament, that is the legislatures. The legislatures or MPs can only be the person who will head the ministry or department. So, we do not have a clear separation of power when it comes to parliamentary form of government. So, executive is not responsible in presidential form of government, which is practiced in United States of America. Executive is not responsible to the parliament, that is legislature. They could take any action. For that, legislature or legislation in the Congress is not required. So, they are independent of legislature, and judiciary is also quite independent in United States of America. Here we have independent but integrated judicial system in India. So, constitutionally they are independent of the legislature in respect of terms of office. When we say terms of office, the United States of America president would be elected for 4 years. So, term is fixed. Though in India, the parliamentary form of government, any government is elected for the duration of 5 years, but if there is any differences or if the majority falls, then the government would be dissolved. So, we do not have a fixed term of 5 years until and unless there is a majority in the parliament. The party which got elected to form a government should have majority. We have seen in many cases there is a dissolution of the government because the house could not prove its majority. We have seen cases when there was a no majority. Here in the case of Morarji Desai government, in the case of Charan Singh government, Vishwanath Pratap Singh government, Chandrasekhar government, I.K. Gujral government. Then we also seen for few years even Atal Bihari Vajpayee government also got dissolved because they could not prove the majority. And slowly we had diverted to coalition form of governments. So, the majority in the house is important to have a full 5 years of term. So, there are many such features of these governments. So, as I said, parliamentary system of government is also known as cabinet government, responsible government, because cabinet is the highest decision making body, very important. So, a group of ministers within the council of ministers would form a cabinet, and we know council of ministers is a larger body for any strategic decisions to be taken, it is not feasible to have consensus among all those ministers. So we have a smaller body within the Council of Ministers which heads very important portfolios would form the highest decision making body, or they are the highest executive body. So we also call it as a cabinet government. Responsible government, they are responsible to the Lok Sabha in particular and Parliament in general. And Westminster model, we say that Westminster model because Westminster is a place where the parliamentary system of government has got originated. This parliamentary system of government is prevalent in Britain. We have taken the parliamentary form of government from British. We have Canada, Japan and other states where parliamentary form of government is in functioning at present. We call presidential form of government as non-responsible government. Non-responsible does not mean irresponsible. Here non-responsible means the executive is not accountable to the legislature. So for every action, the executive is president and his secretaries, we call them as departmental secretaries. So this executive body is not responsible to the Congress, unlike in India where executive is responsible to the parliament, because those executives are also the members of the parliament. So their every action would be discussed in the parliament. We have many such tools, like we have many motions, we have short notice, we have cut motions, we have debates, discussions, adjournment motions, no confidence motion. So all these are the tools like question hour. So by this the opposition party would ask questions, and it is the responsibility of those executive or ministers, what we call, to answer those questions. Because there is a lot of debate and discussion, the executive is responsible to the parliament. Here in presidential system, there is no such responsibility. The executive in presidential system are not accountable for the legislature or Congress. So this type of presidential system is prevalent in United States of America, Sri Lanka, Russia, Brazil, etc. So we have to know that presidential system of government has its own merits, prime ministerial system has its own merits. Both the system has their own limitations also. We could not find a system of government where both stability and responsibility are together. When we say presidential form of government has little responsibility but more stability. In parliamentary form of government, it is more responsible but less stable. So we could choose any one, and we have opted for parliamentary form of government, that is a responsible government. So presidential form of government has a fixed tenure of 4 years in United States of America. In India, we do not have such fixed tenure. Though the government, the ruling government can be there for 5 years, but if there is no majority, the government gets dissolved. So we could not say that the government has a fixed tenure. That depends upon the majority in the house. So that is presidential form of government. So Dr. Ivor Jennings, expert in constitution, expert in parliamentary law, has called parliamentary form of government as responsible government. So we know we also called parliamentary form of government as prime ministerial government, because prime minister is also a member of the parliament. He is the leader of the party, he is the leader of the house. But prime minister, when we say, he is a primus inter pares, that is one among equals. He is the first among equals. Here equals is all the members of parliament. So prime minister, because he is the leader of that party, leader of the Lok Sabha, we call him as primus inter pares, that is first among equals. And this is the reason why we also called the parliamentary form of government as prime ministerial government, because prime minister, at least nowadays we have seen many powerful prime ministers. We had powerful prime ministers like Jawaharlal Nehru, then Indira Gandhi, then Rajiv Gandhi. We have, at present we have Narendra Modi, who are very powerful, and we cannot just say that they are one among equals or first among equals. They are powerful that they could influence the policies of the government. So they could influence the cabinet also. So that is the reason why we call parliamentary form of government as prime ministerial government. So we'll discuss the features of parliamentary government.